What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Heath Mullikin Project, the podcast where we're helping you discover your purpose, your passion, and your possibilities. Today, we're going to be kind of talking about the aftermath, the review of the comedy show that I did last week. I'm recording this on, let me check the watch here, February, December the 19th. What I'm trying to do with this podcast, if you have followed me, I have struggled with seasons of inconsistency with the podcast. What I'm trying to do now is record kind of in batches. So that's why you're like, if you're watching this, you're like, I think he was wearing the same thing in another episode. It's because I'm recording multiple episodes at once covering different topics. So today, recording a couple episodes, but I wanted to, a lot of people have reached out. How'd your show go? How'd it go? It went really well. I was very happy with it. My goal was to do an hour and 10 minutes. Or excuse me, my goal was to do an hour of material. I did an hour and 10 minutes. I was really happy with it. So full stop. I was really happy with it. I had a great time. So appreciative of everyone who came out. There was a lot more. I had no idea. We had not, SWU had not done an event like that ever. I obviously had never done an event like that ever. So I had no idea what to expect as far as the crowd size. So to have, 40 to 50 people there just blew me away. So very grateful. It was a wonderful experience. On this episode, I wanted to do two things. Kind of give a little bit of review, a little bit of explanation, and then share kind of what's next. So, as I have been reviewing this, here's what you need to understand about this show. The only things on this show that I'd not told any of these jokes before. The church van story, the ice cream sandwich story, those are famous stories that I have told dozens of times in front of big crowds, in front of small crowds. One of the reasons I wanted to do this show was to retire those stories in that kind of environment. I'll still tell them around the table, things like that. But as far as a big group, it was almost like a cheat code for me. I wanted to do an hour. I knew I had 20 minutes just in those two stories. So the challenge moving forward is, all right, now I got to come up with new material. All the other jokes, all the other things that I did, those are the first time those jokes had ever been told. When you watch a comedy special, Jamie Foxx just did a comedy special. Nate Bargatze's got his Christmas special coming up. When you see a comic on Netflix or TV, those jokes have been crafted and perfected in front of live audiences before you see them in front of a big crowd like that. So I have to cut myself some slack in going back and watching the tape and be like, all right, this didn't land. Just like, bro, this is no practice. Like, there's a lot different practicing it in your office with no crowd versus with a live audience. So I've had to cut myself some slack that these were not rehearsed jokes. I mean, these jokes had not been put out in front of an audience before. So, it was kind of like a dry run. And my friend Mark kind of was reaching out and giving me a couple of notes. And I'm like, bro, that kind of material, like, if I do a show in front of this audience again, it'll have to be all new material. So my goal, I think the thing I was happiest with is my goal with this one was I wanted everything to connect. And I wanted to move seamlessly from topic to topic. And then I knew I had 2 musical slots. And like the first segment gets me to this musical slot. And the musical slot, those 2 songs tie in the entire first half of the show. And then the second half of the show, I did, Christmas wish list. I did some audience. I did, this game where I do sermon illustrations. So it was a little different feel than the first half. But then everything, once you get to a certain point in the second half, everything's flowing to get to this. Everything's flowing to get to this closing story and a closing song. So I was really happy with the flow of things. And I've probably gone back and listened to it. People have asked, are you going to post the whole thing? I've been posting clips. Probably not going to post the whole unedited thing online, just for some various reasons. But I thought it wasn't, I didn't think it was too bad for, really kind of the first go of it. What has come out of it is, sometimes you scratch an itch and you're like, all right, I'm good. Sometimes you scratch an itch, just like, I have no, there's just this thing of, all right, what can we do here? There's this thing of, okay, I got these jokes, and now I have, I would say pretty much since this show, accumulating more material, writing all new jokes. I started a new Word document where I'm kind of putting some things together. I already have some ideas for making it more, having more media. Like what I mean is basically having a TV or a screen that it's almost like not a TED Talk, but that we're clicking through and, okay, this is chapter 1 of this show, and here's chapter 2, and here's, there were some things that I shared about that would have been much more effective if you had, a picture there. Having said that, also just watching, I it's amazing how you start uploading videos with the hashtag stand-up comedy, and now your feed is filled with stand-up comedy stuff. But really found some helpful videos of a guy who critiques stand-up comics. And so been watching those, and it's just kind of been very eye-opening to just kind of see and hear, hadn't thought about that. And again, the goal is not to be a professional comedian. I will say this. I have probably been, I don't know if annoying is the word. I hope I'm not annoying, but like this flipped a switch in me where I'm always looking for an in. Like if we're in a conversation, I'm looking for a bit, I'm looking for a line, I've always been like that. And I think what's happened to me this year, I think I talked about this on the Joy Funnel, was I don't apologize for that anymore. Like that is who I am. And I am not going to apologize for my attempts at being funny. Now, if I said something inappropriate or at an inopportune time, then okay, I'll take ownership of that. But for the most part, it is a switch that is on 16, 17 hours a day. I turn it off when I'm sleeping But if we're, I think Seinfeld, man, somebody was talking to Seinfeld one time and they're like, are you going to use this? We're just having a conversation. Like, yeah, of course I'm going to use this. And that's kind of how I feel. I was having, conversation at lunch yesterday, and this topic came up of my buddy's having a baby today, actually. And we were talking about packing a bag for the hospital. And hey, don't get your go bag for the hospital confused with your go bag for the apocalypse. Your prepper bag. Don't get those two bags mixed up. And then it just opened up this whole conversation that made me just, oh man, there's some possibilities there. So I think the point of all this is I do believe that there's a skill here that I want to get better at. And I think that's the whole point of this is writing material, creating opportunities to share, perform the material, and then figuring out, how to refine it or whatever. So I'm super, it just got my blood. It just got my blood flowing. Like today has been, as you know, I live in South Carolina, so the weather's kind of funky. And yesterday it got a little warm, which jacked up everybody's allergies. So today I've just not been feeling it. I was like, you know what? I want to record this. And it really, talking about this it's just kind of jazzed me up. So I'm super excited for the future. I'm super excited for opportunities to share this stuff. It's just fun. And I think laughter is really great medicine. And I think that, I think on a college campus, you have this kind of built-in audience. So I'm already thinking about, ways to share whatever I'm doing here. So thank you. If you're watching this, thank you for all your support. I want to say this in closing. This was so good for me to do this really, really scary thing. And the Tuesday of the show, nothing went as planned. I did get set up. I got the room set up earlier than expected. But as far as I wasn't feeling great. I wasn't feeling great physically. I felt rushed. I felt very frazzled. Even leading up to like 30 minutes before the show, just was like, was getting in my head about some things. And I knew once we start, that's what I got to do. I got to get to this point, and then I'll be okay. Once that red light shows we're live, I'll be good to go. And it was a blur. It was such a blur. It was such a blur that I don't think if I do this again, I will definitely slow down a little and be in the moment a little bit more. I think that's one thing. I wouldn't call it a regret, but I don't think that's been the good thing about watching it back is just being reminded how fun it was. And again, watching some of the funniest things I said were not planned. They were feeding off the audience, ad libs. So that was very encouraging. So if you follow me on social media, I've been posting some of the clips on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. But again, I was saying, this is the year. This is the time. Maybe you've been putting something off, trying something. You've been putting off starting a blog or a podcast or a business or whatever. And you're scared and you don't think you're good enough and you don't know how people are going to react. And you don't know if anyone's going to read your stuff or listen to your stuff. And I would say that's not the point. The point is, do you want to do it or not? Do you feel called? Do you feel equipped? Is this something you have to do? Because for me, that's what this was something that's like, I have to do this. Like, I have to do this. And this is just something silly. This is just something like a hobby kind of thing. But we are very good as human beings at making excuses, of coming up with all the things, the reasons why we can't do something. Whether it's, well, don't have the opportunity, or I don't have the time, or I'm not good enough, don't have the skills, or I don't have the confidence, or I don't have people's support. And I had decided I was doing this, and if 10 people showed up, that would be great. I was going to give them the best. I did this for me. And now, so that's the question you got to ask yourself, because once you get over that hump, you realize two things. There's two things I've realized. Number one, I feel like a cap has been taken off, right? I feel like the sky's the limit. I feel like anything is possible, which is amazing. It is an amazing feeling. Doing this event has helped, I would say, every area of my life. It's like just unleashed something within me that I did this. I'm so grateful to, I don't know if it was, I don't know how to really put it in the words, but I feel like I was obedient in something, and I just feel empowered by the Holy Spirit to just be like, all right, let's go, bro. Like, this is just one thing, and there's 20 things here, and we're gonna do them all. So I feel like the sky's the limit. On the flip side, there is a grind to this. There's a grind to it. You talk to any pastor who preaches 30 or more times a year, it is fun, it is rewarding, it's an adventure, but it is a grind. When you're trying to, it's a grind. And that's part of it. We shy away from the grind. We shy away from that hard work where the rubber meets the road. Now, I'm preaching in the choir here because, I've been working on a book on and off for 6 years. And you know what you do when you're doing comedy? You're writing. You know what you do when you're writing, when you're doing videos talking about the different voices in your head? You're writing. So that's what I mean. This has unleashed me to be like, Heath, all the time you're telling yourself you're not a writer, you don't like writing, but yet you feel alive when you have done things that require you to write. So at the end of the year, at the end of 2024, we're at the end of 2024. At the end of 2025, you'll either be right where you are now, just an excuse. Listen, you're writing excuses in your head. You might as well write something productive, right? Instead of just keep, coming up with excuse after excuse after excuse. Come up with something productive. Write something productive. Do something productive. Make the time. Make the effort. Make it fun. That's, I it. I think one of the good things for me the last little bit is, and I was thinking about this the other night, was seeing people who are just in that excuse mode. And I have it is repulsive. I'm not trying to be mean, but like when you encounter people who you believe in and they have skills and they have talents and they got the whole world in front of them, and then they're just not gonna. And I think I've always said about myself that I felt my biggest criticism of myself was that I don't know that I've ever reached my full potential. And I think I used to blame other people for that. And I feel like every day I'm closer and closer to reaching my full potential. And when you see people or encounter things or encounter people who have just kind of given up on that, and they're satisfied in their misery. They're like satisfied in this they're satisfied in their mediocre misery. And I don't want to be satisfied, and I don't want to be mediocre, and I don't want to be miserable. And that's why I put a date on the calendar before I had the jokes written. So maybe that's the next thing. It's time to schedule another event. It's time to do something. So again, 2025, it's about finding your purpose. It's about finding your passion. It's about finding your possibilities. The world is out there. It's time to trust the Lord. It's time to follow Him. It's time to be who you were made to be and do what you were made to do. So thanks for all your support. You can listen to this great podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. I always found it weird that while you're listening to a podcast, people tell you where you can listen to podcasts, and you're already listening to the podcast, so you already know how to find it and listen to it. But the best thing, the three things you can do for me to support this is, number one, find this on social media. I have a Facebook page, the Heath Mullikin Project. Like it, share it. If you see a post on Facebook, or like it, share it. Number two, go to Spotify or Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review. It takes you a minute to do that. And last thing, tell a friend, hey, just listen to this podcast. It was very encouraging. You should check it out. And again, it is anywhere. If you are on any podcast platform or YouTube and search for the Heath Mullikin Project, this is what you get. So, getting excited for 2025. Getting ready. I'm going to look at Christmas lights tonight. Very excited about that out in Oakway. They always do a great job. So, I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Do I have another episode coming before the end of the year? Yeah, absolutely. But for everybody here at the Heath Mullikin Project, which that's just me, thanks again for your support, and we'll see you soon.